Good morning, everybody. This is Lori and SHiFT Charlotte, and we are here this morning to do SHiFT Online, and our 9 o'clock slot and is with Maia Toll. And good morning, Maia.
Good morning. I got dressed for you. No hoodie, look at that.
I took a shower for you, and I have my backdrop, not virtual, which was one of the tapestries that was going to be at SHiFT, because what's behind me is nowhere near as pretty as said mentioned tapestry. So we're here to talk with Maia this morning about a variety of things, that whatever she really feels like talking about. But originally we talked about the fact that she would like to talk about this, which is just an amazing book, card deck. And it's really not a book, it's a life of work, right, Maia? It's something that was your heart, your passion. So tell us a little bit about you, and then what led you to do this.
Yeah, so hi everyone. This is really unprecedented times. And as an herbalist, it's particularly unprecedented times. So I'm thrilled to be able to talk with you all today, not only about the book, but about how the plants can support us right now, because I think we all need some support. My personal path to this place is windy, like most of ours, but I got ill in my 20s. And I was living in New York City at the time, best doctors in the world, and they pretty much chewed me up and spit me out and said, "We don't know what to do with you." And luckily, one of my doctors was studying Chinese medicine. So she was a, MD studying Chinese medicine. And she pulled me aside and she said, "Look, I don't know what's wrong with you. I'm not far enough along in my studies to know what's going on. But the patterns that you're presenting with feel more like Chinese medicine patterns than they feel like Western medicine patterns. So why don't you see if you can find some help by going through the alternative routes?" Now, right now, going alternative is almost mainstream, right? Like, we can go alternative and find people right in our hometowns who other people use and are trusted and respected. This was not the case 25 years ago. So I was pretty much turned loose in the wilds of New York. And I was visiting homeopaths in their little basement apartments, and, acupuncturists in like the dusty studio above the garage. It was an experience. It was an experience of getting to know a New York I had never seen before. But slowly, over many months, I started to get better. And people always say, "Oh, the plants healed you." Maybe dietary choices healed me. Maybe acupuncture healed me. I don't know. I was doing a gazillion things, but the plants won me over. I grew up riding horses. So my second book is actually The Illustrated Bestiary. And I would say animals were first for me. I started kind of connecting with the natural world through animals and through connection with animals. And plants were second, and crystals were third. And truthfully, they're my true love. I can't leave home without one in my pocket, or tucked in my bra, or wherever it might be. So it's been an interesting journey, because I grew up with a family that was very Western medicine oriented. My father's an attorney, my mother's a family therapist. This was all strange and woo-woo, and I didn't believe it, and I thought it was bullshit. And interestingly, I also thought there was no way that it could be scientifically supported, which, when you break this belief down, it's very unscientific, right? Anything can be scientifically supported. Scientific method requires that we ask questions, run experiments, and see what the answers are. But somehow Western medicine has become this weird religion where we believe it, and we believe that nothing else can be right and nothing else could possibly be scientifically proven. So I do want to start, because my books are whimsical and kind of fairy tale. They connect you more with the energy of the plants and the animals and the crystals than the medicinal properties. But I think it's really important to note that as soon as you step out of the United States, where the drug companies are controlling the scientific tests and, the tests of what we're going to call medicine, as soon as you step out of the United States and go to Germany or to India, there are plenty of tests that prove the efficacy of these materials. And especially now, I'm seeing a lot of people beginning to start to look at herbs because the medical community does not know what to tell us to do right now. The medical community, I can actually now, unfortunately, speak from experience because I'm helping some people through cases of COVID-19. And what they have been told if they are young is there's no test for you. Stay home, quarantine, ride it out. That's all they're being told. And, ride it out is brutal. This is a no joke condition. I've been a clinical herbalist for a dozen years, more than a dozen years, and worked with people through some incredibly difficult situations. This is a brutal one. And so one of the things that I'm seeing is that people who have never before turned to herbs are turning to herbs. And I told Lori that I wasn't going to talk a lot about this because there's so much information and so many misconceptions. But what I've realized in the past couple of days, actually since Lori and I spoke last, is that there are new people coming to herbs who don't have an understanding of the very most basic things. So like before we even get to what herbs should I use, and truthfully, there are so many people out there telling you what herbs to use. I just want to give you some kind of fundamental basic information. So first, herbs are metabolized by your body very quickly. So we've gotten used to time release capsules and medicines that we take in the morning and take at night or take every 24 hours. Herbs do not work that way. If you are going to be working with herbs, you cannot treat them the same way you treat pharmaceuticals. They're not the same thing. They're kind of advanced food. So if someone is doing like just immune boosting and things like that, then you could do, a morning and evening dose the same way you would with like a pharmaceutical medicine. But if you have someone in an acute condition and you're like, I bought all these herbs, I'm going to use them, you need to be dosing every 2 hours. So when you begin to understand the level of intensity needed for herbal home care, you kind of see why modern medicine took off. Even if it doesn't always work brilliantly, even if it screws up our body in other ways, you can begin to understand why people were like, oh, whew, that's a relief. I could just take a pill twice a day. I'm done. That's not the way herbal medicine works. So when I'm working with someone who's ill, I pull out my huge pot, like the big one, the one that's bigger than my head on the screen. And I brew a mammoth amount of tea. And that's for one day. That's not a week's worth. In fact, it's not a week's worth because plants plus water equals mold. So you can't just like make a ton and save it. You can probably save a pot of tea in your fridge for 48 hours and be fine. If it has a lot of herbs that have high antimicrobial, antiviral properties, like thyme and oregano, all your kitchen herbs, then you can probably let it go in your fridge for 3 days. But 2 days is a good bet. So you're going to make a giant pot of tea. And then if it's you, you're going to force feed yourself. And if it's your partner or your child, you're going to force feed them. And they're not going to like it. And you're not going to like it because it's going to taste icky. A lot of the stronger herbs taste a bit like you're drinking spaghetti sauce if you're lucky. If you're not lucky, they're just bitter as all get out. And, when you're sick, sometimes you're not very interested in food. You're not very interested in liquids. And yet you still got to glug this stuff down. So I just want to be really clear with everyone. If you're going to turn to herbs, the dosing is totally different. Teas are going to be kind of constant. Like you're just constantly drinking it, handing it to the other person, drink this. Tinctures, which is an extract in alcohol, is going to be every 2 hours. And you're going to need a full teaspoon. So those itty bitty bottles, those 1 ounces, not going to do it. You're going to go through those in 5 minutes. You need a significant amount, which is a significant financial investment. So teas are the inexpensive way to go. And truthfully, they're just as effective. But here's the thing. The water is what's extracting the chemical properties from the herbs. The smaller the piece of herb, the more the water can extract the chemical property. So if you have a big chunk, the water only touches the front side and the back side. If it's broken down into little pieces, then the water is getting all around those little pieces. So what you can actually do is you can take your herbs, you can put them with like a little bit of water, like a quarter cup in the blender, zzz, make a slurry. Then pour your boiling water in, let it steep. Steep, it must steep 20 to 30 minutes, okay? So you need to let it steep and then you can strain it and start drinking it. If you're using leaves and if you're using berries, things that are kind of soft and squishy, then you can just steep. But if you're using roots, like if you're using elecampane, which is a root, if you're using golden seal, which is a root, then they actually need to be boiled. Golden seal, not so much because it's fragile, so you can get away with not. This is one of those things where if you can choose what you're going to have at home, look it up beforehand so you know what to do with it in the moment, you're going to be better off. Because one woman I'm working with now, 32, not 82, she went down fast. She went down so fast. She'd been kind of coughing lightly for like a week. She's a friend of mine. So I was on the phone with her and stuff with like, we're doing these kinds of things, right? With different groupings. And she'd been kind of doing that. And we were like, Cal, what's up? And she's like, allergies, allergies. And then she texted me when she was walking her dog. She's like, I think I have a fever. She went home. She's like, my fever's higher. This was at 5 o'clock at night. The next morning, down in such a way that like, I was like, you got to do this. She's like, I can't get out of bed. So having a plan, having things in the house, knowing how to use them is super important. If you wait until you're sick, and that's what we tend to do here, we're not good at prevention. It's not our thing. We don't believe it until we feel it. If you wait, you're not going to have what you need in the house. And if you go down quick, you're not going to be able to wait for Amazon or for my store Herbiary to deliver it to you, because that's going to be 3 days. Mm-hmm. So having a plan, being prepared. If you figure you're going to get sick and you don't, hallelujah. Mm-hmm. Hallelujah. Pass those medicines to someone who needs them. But having in mind that it might happen is worth thinking about, and doing everything in your power with immune building herbs. And I actually created a section on my Herbiary website that just says immune, and you can click there and see what's under that section. Having immune building herbs in your system will take the level down significantly. I can't promise you you're not going to get sick. You know, as a clinical herbalist, I've worked with people so many times who said to me, you know, but I did the immune builders and I got sick, or I took the herbs and I still had a cold. Guess what? They're not magic wands. What they're going to do is they're going to bolster your body, shorten the duration of an illness, shorten the intensity of an illness. If you're going to judge them by whether you got sick or not, it's a fail. If you're going to say, I did get sick and I was able to take care of it from home, it was miserable, but I got through it and I'm healthy now, that's a win. If you can say, I did not have to lean into our very overloaded medical system because I was strong enough in myself, that's a win. So I think that a lot of what we need to do right now is shift some of our thinking around the tools available to us. And I am here to help. Herbiary, my store, is here to help. We are frantically sending packages all over the country, trying to get everyone what they need. So because I sell herbs, it's this funny little thing. I'm not allowed to make claims about them. It's the snake oil salesman thing. Like, I can't say to you, this treats the coronavirus. And truthfully, nobody knows what treats the coronavirus yet. We have some ideas from China because they use a lot of herbs. 80% of their cases who were not on ventilators were treated with herbs. So we do have some great feedback. But I'm not allowed to make claims about specific herbs. The good news is there are people all over the place talking about things. Rosalie DeFloret is posting some great things. Chestnut School of Herbal Medicine is posting some great things. Botanic Wise is posting great things. There's so much good information on the internet, but a lot of it I've realized is more advanced. So if you're the beginner, you need to remember my dosing, have it in the house, do your research first. And remember that we don't have answers. And some of this is also, we don't have answers because that's not the way herbs work. With herbs, we tend to work with what's called energetics. So we're like, ooh, this condition, COVID-19, is a hot, dry condition. So how do we treat a hot, dry condition? But most Americans don't know what that means. And what they want to hear is, how do we treat COVID-19? So it's a different way of working your brain. So, Lori, have I said anything that's brought up like questions for you or give me more information?
Sure. So I'm going to be the audience of me trying to go, okay, I followed all of that. And so I have some questions. So number one, just for the whole audience, is when we're done with this, I will have Maia give me a text of some websites or some of those people's names.
Yes.
So that I can just share that information when we share this recording. This recording will be posted, by the way, even though I've had all these technical issues, it's being recorded, and it will be posted with the information. So you can actually, anyone listening can actually share this recording out as well. So you don't have to be frantically telling people, hey, get online right now, because that's the glory of recording at your pace.
Yes.
A couple things, Maia, when you were talking, because you're not allowed to say specific herb names, and because people know how to Google, and at the end of this, I'll show them your website. We'll just go ahead and type it in and add that screen share so they get right to the website, and we can actually show them that from the Herbiary. You know, the power of Google, guys, is pretty intense. So Maia will give us some places that we can maybe target in on so that we're not doing the kind of the shares of the information that maybe is unaccredited or unsubstantiated, or let's drink water because some Japanese doctor told us to every 15 minutes, which we know isn't really true. So kind of just be cautious too, as everyone is out there doing it. So Maia, from the perspective of, let's assume people are like in our community, are aware of the herbal benefits because they've been around the community long enough that they know, but it isn't something that they've always done before. You know, you spoke about teas, you spoke about tinctures. Tinctures are something that you really have to buy from somebody, whereas tea is something they could potentially make on their own.
Yes.
Are there things out there now, either for immune boosting or just I have it and I want to feel better? And those are two different categories. So the category is I have it, don't have it yet, but I want to make sure my body's healthy, versus I have it and this is a cold, dry thing, and maybe these are things that could help me. Can you go through what's maybe readily available that people could buy in farmers markets are already kind of out there now with product, as well as stores? Can you kind of talk through what's generally available versus I have to buy it from an herbal store?
Oh, great question. Okay. So some of this has to do with how much you're willing to research preparation. A lot of herbal preparations are not terribly difficult. Like, one of the very best immune builders you can do is something that we call fire cider. All it is apple cider vinegar, and you put horseradish root, ginger, garlic, onion. I don't put any cayenne or habanero in mine because I can't tolerate the nightshade plant family, but lots of people do put that in, and it's fabulous if you can handle it. You can put things in that are just your kind of favorite herbs. Like, I put thyme in everything. Everything pretty much tastes like spaghetti sauce. So you put it into the apple cider vinegar. You make sure the apple cider vinegar covers the top, put a lid on it, and every couple days you're going to shake it. Technically, you let that sit for 30 days. Probably it's going to be strong enough after 10. So this is one of those things where it's like, if you're new to this and you haven't started some fire cider, you might want to buy some that someone else bought, someone else made, right? And like, we have that on our website, and then start your own so that you don't have to continue buying the stuff that somebody else made. You know, remember, whenever you buy something that somebody else made, you're paying not only for the ingredients, but for their time, for their expertise. Like, you know, those of us who have been doing this a while feel like, well, 20 years of study, I'm going to jack my prices a little bit to accommodate for that. Labels, which are stupid expensive. Bottles, which are ridiculously expensive. Droppers, more expensive than bottles. So the cost, like what goes into putting it into a bottle for you, is so much more than the cost of ingredients. So if you can make your own soon, so it will be ready for you in 10 days is like light. I'd love it to go to 30. If you can buy something to tide you over in the meantime to get you there, that's great. In terms of things that you can find in farmers markets, mushrooms are extremely medicinal. And the problem is, depending on where you are, you might not even have farmers markets right now. So it's, you know, like what food stores actually have these. I know Whole Foods sometimes has a good variety of mushrooms. But you want to look for hen of the woods. Shiitake, which is fairly common, actually has some nice medicinal properties. In terms of things that are more specific to building your immune system in the ways you need to build it right now, reishi mushroom, which you don't want to like buy and cook in your food because it is bitter, is a really good one. And turkey tail is a really good one. So, you know, those are like reishi in particular, you probably want to do either in a tincture or in a capsule, because it's so bitter, especially if you're not used to taking herbs. Like you kind of get used to the bitter taste, but the first time you're like, so I tell kids that they can do the icky dance, which is where you jump up and down and go, because it's bitter. Moms, that does work. Giving kids permission to like jump around and make horrible faces. I've had kids take all sorts of things. Also, if you will let the kids help with the mixing. So if you're making a tea, you let them spoon things in. If they made it, they'll take it. Doesn't matter how gross it is. So that's been super helpful for me with kids. Other farmers market foods that are super, super good, super potent, ginger. Ginger is magic. Ginger actually thins mucus, which is what you need. And it's immune building. It has shown efficacy against coronaviruses. Now I want you to hear that. COVID-19 is a class of virus called the coronaviruses. It's a coronavirus. There are many coronaviruses. So when I say ginger has shown efficacy against coronavirus, it has not specifically shown efficacy against COVID-19. We're not there yet. We don't have that information yet. So ginger is an easy one, right? Ginger is easy to find, and you can be slicing up the root, boiling it in water, making tea. You can be doing that like slurry thing I told you about, which will get spicy, but you could even like do that slurry in the blender and then strain it, add some lime and some honey and some seltzer and kind of make homemade ginger ale. And that would be great. The other farmer's market thing that is fantabulous is garlic. Garlic has actually been shown in clinical studies to be stronger than a lot of antibiotics. It's both antiviral and antibiotic. You can chop like a half a clove into about a quarter cup of honey, let it sit for a day or so, and then you can just eat the garlic honey off the spoon. Garlic loses its efficacy when it's cooked. So what you want to do with your garlic is when it's raw, you take the side of your knife, like you lay your knife like this, and you put the garlic underneath, and you smash your knife. I usually take my fist and go boom, boom, boom on the garlic, and the garlic goes. And then you let it sit for 5 minutes. That lets the medicine percolate. Then you chop it up, but you need to eat it raw. So pesto is great because pesto is raw garlic. The garlic and honey is great. Just sprinkling a little bit on your food is fabulous. Onions are the opposite. Onions, they're medicines released with cooking. So caramelize those onions, and they're delicious that way. So yeah, those are the really fabulous farmers market finds
Cool.
that you can be working with right now.
Neat. So let me just take you back to tea then for a minute, because I'm a total tea drinker. And so what I have is the ability to just throw lots of things in a pot and let it stew, and then just kind of experiment too. So I have some friends that had given me some stinging nettle. I have the red clover. I have lots of things like along the way. And just what I encourage, what I'm curious what your perspective is too, is sometimes people have some teas that they like the taste of. And is it possible for them just to throw some of this other fresh herbs into them? Or does that take away the efficacy of the medicine?
No, the only thing is, like, you can mix and match if you're at the, I feel fine, I'm just building my system, I'm doing this nutritively. In Chinese medicine, they talk about conditions first you're healthy, and then what you're doing is you're providing nutrients to your body. Then the next step is something has come in at the surface, like it's just fresh, it's new, and you want to kick it out. And so a lot of times what you're doing with that is you're upping the things you're already doing, right? You're kind of being like, oh, I was taking my immune tea twice a day, I'm going to do it every 2 hours. The other thing that really helps with that kind of surface level penetration is sweating. So if you have ginger in the house, make yourself a cup of ginger tea. Or if you have yarrow or elderflower, that's called a diaphoretic. And what that means is the Chinese name for diaphoretics means opens the exterior, which I love. The visual's great. It makes you sweat. It opens your pores so you can sweat. So you drink a cup of ginger or yarrow or cayenne if you have to, or elderflower tea, and you get in the hottest bath you can stand.
Okay.
Put some ginger powder in it, put some mustard powder in it. What you want to do is raise your temperature and make yourself sweat. Because what you're doing is you still have something at the surface level and you're sweating it out, right? For something that comes in through the respiratory tract, while it ends up in your lungs, it starts in your nose and your throat. So you also want to clean those out. So you can use a sinus oil, like something with strong essential oils. If you go to the Herbiary website, I have sinus oils, and you just take it, you put it on your finger, not far up your nose, but swab it around your nose. I've been doing this 3 times a day, just keeping my mucous membranes strong, because they're the first line of defense. They're keeping things from penetrating, right? And then your throat, you can just gargle with some salt water. Here's the thing. A virus is not alive. Crazy, right? We don't need to kill it. What we need to do is we need to break the fat cell wall that's protecting this little snippet of nasty ass code. It's more like a computer virus than a bacteria. So this little code tries to get into your cells and tell them to mimic its code. So what you need to do is not kill it because it's not alive, but that lipid fat outer wall, once it's broken, you've disarmed this little thing. So that's why washing your hands is so important. It's not the water, it's the soap. Like, you know how they use Dawn to get oil slicks off seabirds? You are trying to break up the fat that is surrounding this little molecule. So fat also can be dried out. So salt, you can put some salt in warm water and gargle, and that will hit the back of your throat. You can also use the neti pot, which is, for those of you who don't know, this really fun thing you do where you pour water up your nose. It goes up one side and out the other, and it has a little salt in it, and that will clear out your sinuses. So keeping your sinuses clear is super important. I've been using the sinus oil, and I have a throat spray that has a couple different things, but the thing that is super important for this is licorice. So licorice really helps to keep the mucous membranes in your throat healthy, and it's also antiviral. So I'm spritzing my throat all the time, and this is my normal routine for when I travel. When I'm on airplanes, I'm always using sinus oil, spritzing my throat, because colds, flus, whatever, you breathe it in. And I'm trying to protect my mucous membranes and keep them healthy and strong so that they do the job they're supposed to do, which is to keep things out. Right?
Perfect. Thank you. So
you're welcome.
Let me just ask if you would like to spend a couple minutes. I'm feeling like, you're just such a wealth of resources that we could probably keep you on the phone all day, but we're not going to. And I do want to honor something, because, for all of this work that you did manifested in you desiring to publish something, to share with people, to bring, I think, herbs into their life in a way that was maybe a little whimsical, but really to bring herbs into people's lives because it's something that's meaningful to you. So for those that are watching the recording and might not have caught the beginning, Maia has created a book. This is not the COVID, coronavirus response kit. What this is a work of passion and love of dealing with these plants and plant medicine. And I'd like you to talk a little bit about this, just because I think as balance to information, it's also about us living life, being in the now, finding our joy. And this was a joyous thing for you, and it brings me joy when I use it. So let's talk a little bit about this for a little bit and kind of shift gears, if that's okay.
I would love that. In fact, let me see. How about I have a lovely bundle of herbs that a friend made for me. These are just some local mugwort and sage and lavender. How about we just clear out the medicinal stuff, and I'll do a little reading for you. I'll pull a card for you. Let's just shift gears. And I feel like sometimes, especially right now, we need help shifting gears. So, lovely thing about burning herbs, this is not just for your spirit. There have actually been studies that the airborne particles of the herbs kill bacteria. This is why this was used in hospitals forever. So put your feet on the ground, take a deep breath. Let your anxiety just go down through your feet. Send it down into the earth. And just imagine that the smoke can just waft right over the internet to you and surround your body, your energy field. And just the same way it can kill bacteria, just allow it to surround your energy field and release anything that needs releasing. Release anything that's not for your highest good, that's not of you. And from this place of just feeling your own energy, move from your field into your body and feel what your body feels like. Feel what the pattern of your energy feels like, okay? Because this is what you want to return to, the pattern of your energy. Especially now, it's super important to know your own energy, how it feels within your body, and be able to re-ground into it. If you're feeling sick, that's the very first thing I want you to do. Remember the feel of your energy, call it back up. Now allow yourself to envision an anchor. I always picture it as this kind of copper line dropping from my tailbone down into the earth and clicking into the earth's magnetic core, just grounding me here and now. And that's also the release valve, right? If you need to let anything go, just send it down the line. Mama Earth can compost it. She's got no problem. You don't have to protect her from your negative feelings or your negative thoughts or anything in your energy field, because this kind of bifurcated way that we live, where some's good, some's bad, it's all the same to her. She'll compost it, just send it on down. And now I just want you to picture the very top of your head and imagine it as a glowing point of light. And it's attracting light from the heavens and pulling that energy into you. So you have a way to bring energy in, you have a way to release what you don't need. So take a couple deep breaths here. When you're ready, you can open your eyes, or if you want, you can keep them closed because we're going to have story hour. So I'm just going to read to you a little bit from the intro to the illustrated herbiary, and then we'll pull a card. We'll see what we need today. And truthfully, my deck is mixed at this point between the illustrated herbiary and the illustrated bestiary, so we might get an animal. The bus rolled through the Irish countryside, pulling over from time to time so the driver could shout a greeting to a gentleman corralling sheep off the road, or a woman parking her car a few blocks from the next station stop. What I remember now, more than a dozen years later, is the vibrancy of the green that surrounded us. The air seemed to shimmer with it, the color refracting and multiplying. I had come to Ireland to study plants, apprenticing myself to a traditional healer and herbalist for a year's span. I was to live in her house, help with the gardens and medicine making, sit with her as clients came to call, and through osmosis, learn a calling that has always been as much an art as a science. Back home in the States, we focus on the science. We justified using alternative medicine by pointing to properly conducted studies with statistically significant control groups. We could make the sensuous beauty of a rose as dry and antiseptic as an aspirin tablet, and feel justified in doing so because it gained a modicum of acceptance, albeit grudging, for this age-old healing practice. But in the emerald swath of Ireland's center, near the hill of Uisneach, said to be the umbilicus of the island, I learned the art of botanical medicine and the magic of coming into communion with the plant world. And that has changed everything for me. Apprentice to a medicine woman sounds terribly romantic. Indeed, at times it was terrible. And at times it was romantic. Sometimes it was mystical, but most often it was simply lonely. Which I just have to say feels incredibly important right now. This stepping into loneliness and isolation as a place of learning. Living in the middle of cow pastures with no car, an hour's walk from town, leads to introspection, experimentation, and a lot of listening to the wind, to the birds, and to the plants. I ended up studying herbalism after the Manhattan medical community scratched their collective heads and said, "You're obviously sick, but we don't know why." After 7 years of reading and experimenting on my own, I landed in Ireland, living and learning from a woman who was by turns a scientist, a witch, a gardener, and a detective. I was continually flabbergasted that this was my life. And yet I was finding more wisdom in this little house set amongst the Irish cattle fields than I'd found in 3 years of graduate school, which, though it filled with my head with information, left me feeling strangely flat. I spent evenings taking advantage of my teacher's prodigious library, reading and studying in the manner I'd mastered at the university. During the day, I dug in the dirt, drank teas that tasted like salad, or the dirt I'd just been digging in, and learned to use my nose to tell plantain tincture from nettle vinegar. One of my teacher's favorite games was to take the caps off dozens of essential oils and leave me to sniff out which cap went with which bottle. This was somatic learning at its finest. My body began to know all sorts of things, and in the evening, my brain would turn to the books to catch up. This odd sort of knowing went against everything I'd been taught and enculturated to believe, and often it left me at war with myself as my heart and my head tried to learn to coexist. I'll confess, I meant to keep my distance. I meant to learn the medicine of the plants without dipping into the woo-woo and the hippie skirts. But learning with my senses, instead of through the power of my intellect, moved me incrementally into my right brain, my intuitive brain. What you hold in your hands is the fruit of that slow transition from left brain to right. Each plant's description is woven with a warp of modern knowledge and a weft of ancient wisdom. Or perhaps a more apt description is a double helix, the modern and ancient twined together on a cellular level. Personal experience is a powerful teacher. The lessons I learned through my nose and my tongue, my hands and my heart, trump anything I've read in a book. And yet miraculously and affirmatively, the book learning almost always supports the somatic experience. And so science explains what we have known all along. So, if we were in person, we were going to do a tea tasting now. But here we are online. So instead, we'll pull a card. And I should see, this is my deck at this point. So I have cards. This one's from the Bestiary. This is Otter. They're all mixed together. So this is from the Herbiary. This one's Hawthorn. So we'll pull a card and we'll see what we get, whether we get a plant or an animal today. See who wants to support us. So here's the thing with pulling cards, y'all. I feel like people sometimes are like, I'm going to pull a card. Here it is. That's just a random card. That doesn't mean anything. If you want to pull a card that actually means something, you have to set your intention first. You have to really consciously call in what you need to know. You have to ask the cards to guide you. Your energy is working with the subtle energies of the universe to make this happen, right? So, this idea that like, oh, I pulled a card, here it is. That's just some random card. We don't know what that means. You need the card to be answering a question. So the question can be, what do I need to know today? What energy do I need to have in my field today? Is my husband having an affair? Your question can be anything, but if you don't ask the question, then you don't know what the answer means. You need the context, right? And you also always need to be paying attention to both what you might consider the benefits and the challenges of any given situation. So for instance, I have a book that was supposed to be the fourth book that was going to be published with my current publisher. And things were not going right. Like they were the wrong publisher for that book. And I drew a card from a Kim Cran's deck, her archetype deck. And the card was the village. And the village card, like at first it was like, oh, the village, this is lovely. I'm supposed to just like work with the village of the people at my publishing house and make this work. But the village has another aspect. The village has the aspect of it's a closed community. It's not very open to new ideas, right? And that's the situation I was in. It's a closed community that does things in a certain way. And what ended up happening with that book is I pulled it because they're not the right community for that book. And I substituted another book that they're the right community for, and we're also excited to make happen. So you need to look at both sides of a card and not just kind of go for, I think I know what this means. A card should lead you into journaling or meditation or going for a walk and just being with the images. When we just take the surface level stuff, we get surface level results. So you want to go a little deeper. So what I'm going to do, take my stack of cards, and I'm just going to pause for a second and really focus on what I think is important for all of us right now. And I'm going to keep this general to what plant or animal wants to step forward as a guide for us this week, as we're dealing with some pretty difficult times on our planet and in our hearts and in our homes, as we're finding new ways to experience joy that we might not have known or noticed before, as we're learning new things. What energy or spirit wants to come forward to be a guide as we go through this process? So I tend to get like warm tingles in my hands, and that's how I know like we're cooked Things are doing their thing. Um, and after I get to the point where like I'm holding the cards and I'm there, then I don't think it matters at that point how you pick a card. I know that some people, divide it in three and flip over the seventh card and spit on it 27 times or whatever it is. I don't think it matters. A lot of times what I do, and it's hard when the deck has gotten this big, but I spread the cards out and I kind of feel with my hand for what's feeling like tingly, because that's how I feel. And when the deck is this big, I end up doing what I'm about to do now, which is I split it. Like I kind of like, oh, okay, it's in this first bunch. And I'll do that multiple times until I kind of get down to I'm close. It's like playing that game, where you're like hot, hot, cold, cold. And I try to just get rid of the cards that are definitely not the right cards, the ones that are cold, so that I can, by process of elimination, get to the hots. So, all right, getting down to a more manageable bunch. And it's interesting because these are mixed, and sometimes I end up drawing two cards, and so we'll see if I end up with more than one here. So, let's see.
And Maya, just going to give you a time check as you're doing that. We have about 4 minutes. So just letting you know.
This is perfect.
Yeah.
We're just right. All right, y'all. We have two cards. The first one is from the Bestiary. And this is interesting. So it's cow and bull. They don't have quite the same energy, so I wanted to get them both on one card. But the message is appreciate the process, which it's a little tough, right? So that's a lesson that we might all have to be stepping into. And let me just read this to you. You guys haven't seen the Bestiary yet. So this is the Bestiary. And let me find. So page 51. I don't think I've ever read this one aloud before. It's always interesting what comes up. Appreciate the process. A lot of what cow and bull eat is indigestible to other animals. Cow and bull munch on field grass, undeterred by the tenacious fiber. After filling their bellies, they lie down to chew their cud, calmly working over the same meal, breaking it down into smaller and smaller bits. Cows and bulls, like good therapists, know how to process. They luxuriate in regurgitation and slow assimilation, taking what is unpalatable and making it into a full meal. To the ancients, this made them gods and goddesses, bringing fecundity in even the harshest conditions. For modern humans, cow and bull remind us to relax and appreciate the process, the slow rumination that allows even the toughest problems to become digestible. Cow and bull remind you that almost anything can be handled and assimilated if you give it time. I swear I did not stack the deck. Okay. And then, oh, I love this. We got hawthorn. So hawthorn is one of my favorite herbs because it grows all over Ireland. And
I'm going to just stop for 1 second, and I want everyone to look at my screen because I picked what you picked. And guys, I'm not joking. I picked when she picked, and that's hawthorn. And I had the intent. I held the intent. What can we all do as a community, or what would the community need to know? And I did that before she kind of actually said her intent, but I figured I had the deck and the cards. Why not? So go ahead, Maya. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's fantabulous. I have goosebumps. So hawthorn is heart's home. Hawthorn remembers a time when local gods watched over knolls and wells, frolicking and making mischief in her branches. She remembers her limbs hung with strands of beads glittering in the sun and scraps of fabric fluttering in the wind like prayer flags, offerings to the land itself and to the gods who kept alive the vital conduit between spirit and matter. Those days are mostly past. but Hawthorne holds the portals open, knowing these interconnections provide true nourishment to keep the heart whole. If Hawthorne appears for you, strengthen your heart and guard it from homesickness by tending the connections between the spirit realms and the material world. And what I love about that so much for these times is people are feeling lonely and isolated. And Hawthorne reminds us that there's a spirit world that's always with us. It's always there. You connect with the plants, you can connect with the animals, you can connect with the stones and the earth. And if you have any feeling that you can't, I have a solution for you. Lori has a link to a course that I created when I wrote the Illustrated Herbiary that helps you to learn how to connect with spirit and with the material world around us. And it actually walks you through some of the exercises that I would have done had we had a live class. So tools are available. Feel into your connection, not just to the other humans, but to the world around us. That is medicine we all need so desperately. Like that's the medicine that actually fixes what's effed up in our world. You know, I saw a great meme. It said, Mother Earth sent us all to our rooms to think about what we've done. And that's kind of what's going on. We're all thinking about what we've done. And the solution is to connect back beyond the human to the larger world. So. I believe that is that.
So thank you so much. I'm gonna like flip over and try and share my screen right now. With the way technology is working this morning, I actually just tried to bring your website up on the backside and it's like, internet's not wanting to do shit. So there we go. A couple things. So Maia Toll, she is going to, let's just go do the simple things. If you Google Maia Toll, she's got a lot of different things that happen because she's a very like Renaissance lady. So she owns a store called the Herbiary, and let's do a share screen right now and see if we can get you to the Herbiary. So hopefully we will get you to the Herbiary. Okay, there's the Herbiary, and it's literally herbiary.com. And this was what she was mentioning earlier on her homepage. She's got like kind of Maia's picks for things that, if I go back to respiratory support, but I went to the homepage and now she's got kind of learning more about social distancing services. And then Maia's picks, again, she cannot give medical advice and she can't really talk to certain things, but she can just have picks on her homepage, and that's what she's got. And so she's also got how to make your own hand sanitizer, tips for building your immune system, and being here to help. Okay.
So Lori, while you're there, if you go up to the header,
sure.
And if you just scroll that header, go down, see where it says stress support?
Okay. Sorry.
See, it was scrolling itself. I just want people to.
Okay, I'll wait right here.
I set up some links so that you can get to immune support, respiratory support, and stress support, because I think that's what people need most
so social,
right now.
Stress, immune, and respiratory. Got it. Yeah. All right. Now, it was on Google Chrome. If I go back to Safari, now she has a course called Secrets of the Illustrated Herbiary, which is all about the book, and she is very generously donating the link to that and the admission to that for free. That will be given to everybody as I post this video and as I post the schedule and the recordings. Kind of come back later and I'll have all the links for people out there, because this is not, Zoom is not a great way for me to like give you that whole link in all its words. We'll have you something here where you can just kind of click on it later. And I think that's
Lori, this is the course I was talking about. So this is not so much about the book, but about how they can do what I did to write the book, which is that kind of level of high connection.
Thank you. Thank you for the clarity.
Oh, no, that's great. I just want people to know where to find that information.
Perfect. And it is complimentary, guys. This is Maia's gift to all of us, which is just incredibly appreciated. And then I'm going to go back to Chrome, which seems to be working happier than anything else at the moment. But if you went to Amazon.com, because you actually like want to go, where do I get that book? The really simplest thing to do is go here, and here's Maia. And what we can do for Maia, if you love what we had here on the Herbiary, she's got the Bestiary, but she's also should have is the crystal one?
It was
right there.
Yeah.
The one that's coming up, the one she mentioned that was near and dear to her heart, is like kind of her soul. And it's really the soul of a lot of people in our community. This will be coming out in June still.
Yeah.
I got puppies.
Sorry, the wild turkeys have arrived and the dogs are going to bark at them. So Nissa, the Crystallary is probably going to be delayed. All books that were supposed to be out in June are having delayed experiences. So it would be so helpful, y'all. If anybody wants to pre-order this book, the very best thing you can do for any author you love is pre-order their books. So a pre-order would be super helpful, but I think June is probably not going to be the case anymore.
I figured that. I just wanted to mention that. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Maya. Thank you all for listening in. The recording will be out on all of our social media portals at some point when I can get everything downloaded. Who knows when that's going to be, but in the next day or so. And again, namaste, Maya. Thank you so much for your time. It's been lovely. For all that are on the call that want to come and join Dr. Deb Matthews at 10, I am actually ending this meeting because what I can't have is a recording that goes for like a gazillion hours all day, because we want to like encapsulate this recording, end it, and then kind of start fresh. So I'm going to ask all of you to like get back in, same link, go to the restroom, get yourself a good cup of tea, feel invigorated, and we'll start in about 5 to 10 minutes with Dr. Deb Matthews talking about how to, again, deal with your body and your immune system, but in a totally different way. So thank you, everybody, and I'm going to end the recording, and I'm going to end the meeting. And again,